volunteering volunteering to help deliver mobile meals on Christmas. It would be a wonderful gift. If you haven't gotten your goodie bags to the office, I think tomorrow is the kind of the deadline for doing that. I know we got ours all down to the church, and Becky Ferguson, the church member, was going to bring all those over to the office yesterday, I do believe. So that was all good. The East Tennessee Council on Aging, the three areas that are of greatest concern that will be the advocacy focus for the next upcoming legislative session will be, there's just a dearth of boarding house providers across the state of Tennessee. And that is a real concern, that people are living in horrible conditions and trying to live off, the providers of the services are working to live off other people's Social Security checks. It's basically what it is. So that's going to be one of the main focuses. How do we control this in our state? Another area is the whole idea of the scams that people are experiencing, both through the internet, through telephones, you name it, we get scammed to death. So that's number two. Dottie, what's number three?
Transportation.
Transportation. It's always transportation. And that, you know, we're seeing that more and more with people growing older and living out of any sort of our poor infrastructure for transporting people other than via an automobile. And so that's a real concern across the state. So those are going to be the three areas of concern. We have the Snowflake Ball coming up in March, and so watch for information regarding that. I think an exciting thing is that at the market on the corner of Central, the right name, Dottie, the name of the
Three Rivers Co-op.
That's right. It's so neat that they're going to make a sizable donation. We hope, because of the purchases that are made for the month, and so we ask and encourage people to go by Three Rivers Market, pick up Christmas goodies, food, whatever, and know that your money will go further than just to your belly. So it's a good thing. Other things that we might ought to bring up is that there's some staffing changes at the office, which seems like more it's people moving from one position to another, but it's all good stuff. And we have the challenge, as any organization does, of finding enough staff. And staffing, and our pay rate is not the greatest, right, Angela? And yeah, it's not the greatest. So prayers for everyone on the team to find great people to join and be a part of this network. Other things that we might bring up, what would you say, Angela, Dottie? What other things that we discussed today?
I think those are probably the highlights.
Kind of the highlights. Okay. Well, Angela, you're on to introduce Diana.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Diana Brown-Taylor is a licensed clinical social worker who has 28 years of varied experience in healthcare and counseling. Her passion for geriatrics began when she was a graduate school intern here at the Office on Aging in the Project Live program. She then worked for the Geriatric Assessment Program and was the manager of an adult daycare. She has been involved with Alzheimer's Tennessee as a support group facilitator and most recently as a featured speaker for the Memory Cafe. Diana is currently in private practice with Behavioral Medicine Institute on Highland Place Way in Knoxville, and she is also ordained clergy in the United Methodist Church. Thank you, Diana, and welcome.
Thank you, Angela. I appreciate that. It's good to be with you all. And I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to be here for this meeting. Well, the holidays, they're here, aren't they? For our Jewish friends, Hanukkah has just ended with Christmas, Kwanzaa, and the New Year still to come. So no matter how or what you celebrate, the holidays are certainly upon us. For many people, and maybe many of you, the holidays are a joyous time of gathering, feasting, giving and receiving, celebrating. But for others, the holidays mean stress, sadness, loneliness, and yes, even anxiety and depression. So if you're in that first group, then good for you. And I hope you count yourself blessed and fortunate. And I also hope that you share the peace and joy that you have with other people, because not everybody's in that group. So if you find yourself or somebody that you know and care about in that ladder, I'm going to talk about some practical ideas that maybe you can share with them or apply to yourself. So some of those practical things, I hope, will help you stay mentally and emotionally healthy this season. That's, I've been doing counseling for many, many years, and I can't tell you how much more anxiety and depression we have certainly seen since the pandemic, among other things. So that's kind of my soapbox, is to help people stay mentally, emotionally, and physically and spiritually healthy. So first of all, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I'm going to say it because it's going to come out of my mouth, and I think it's important. But have a plan of sorts. Now, I told Angela, my mother and my uncle have joined us today for this session, and they will probably tell you that I'm not much of a planner. I'm kind of a fly by the seat of your pants kind of girl. And I teach mindfulness all the time about how to stay in the moment. But there are just some times in our lives that we need a little bit of a plan. We need some order. So you probably by now have made a shopping list. Maybe you've ordered some gifts. Maybe you've planned a Christmas menu, done some decorating. But if you haven't, that's okay. All is not lost. My tree is not up yet. There's a wreath on the door, but the tree is not up. And it will probably get there, but it'll be there this weekend. And it's okay if it's not. So some guidelines for planning. Be realistic. Be realistic. Just accept that your holidays are not going to look like a Hallmark greeting card, a Hallmark movie, a snow globe, a Norman Rockwell painting, and that's okay too. Your holiday can be anything you want it to be. So give yourself permission to do what you want, not what you think is expected of you. Got that? Don't need to repeat that. Make some lists. Again, not my thing, but it's helpful. Really, make some lists. Daily, if you need to. Some folks need that structure. They need to write things down, and the very act of writing something down is often helpful to get it out of your head so it doesn't keep spinning around in there, and get it down on a piece of paper so you can physically look at it, ponder it, check it off, whatever. But actually writing things down helps you prioritize, figure out maybe what needs to be done, what can wait, and what can actually be skipped. Maybe when you write it down, you're like, not important, I'll just cross that off. So making a list and writing it down really can help you. Do some things ahead of time if you can. It is helpful to sort of pace yourself, to not leave everything to the last minute. And again, this is do as I say, not as I do kind of thing. And don't sweat the small stuff. I think there was a book out by that title, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, and everything is small stuff. One line I came across while working on this was, people eat grocery store cookies just as easily as homemade cookies. They will, if that's what you serve, they'll eat it. Bill, I remember your cookie exchange parties. I'll never forget those. Make a budget. A lot of people get in financial trouble around the holidays because it's so easy these days to just keep putting in the credit card, add to your cart, check out, and you can just keep doing that over and over. And until you get the bill, sometimes you don't realize how much you spent. But those dreaded bills can certainly taint what may have otherwise been an enjoyable holiday, and then make the winter months even worse. Gifts don't need to be expensive. Again, don't go into unnecessary debt. Not all of us, but many of us have plenty. Our family, I think, is looking to do more experiences than stuff, because most of us, and even some folks who maybe aren't as fortunate, still have a lot of stuff. May not be the stuff they need, but they still have a lot of stuff. If you have, some of you who are retired, who have children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, maybe you gift them something that they want. Maybe you go ahead and give it to them now instead of waiting. Surprise them with it. I've encouraged my clients lately to share their stories with their children and grandchildren, because we don't sit around and talk about our stories very often. We don't talk about what things were like when our elders were young and how different it was. We just sometimes don't know those details, and they can slip from us. Maybe you write out favorite recipes that the family's had for years, and somebody needs to have those. If you love those dishes and you want them to be replicated later on, maybe you write instructions on how to do something that somebody else doesn't know how to do, how to make something. So gifts don't have to be something that you buy from Amazon and ends up on your porch. Another way to sort of plan and keep things simpler for the holidays is delegate. Well, big surprise, you and I are only human, and you really shouldn't have to do everything yourself. And simply, some people may not be able to do everything themselves. If you can, again, that's great. But if you can't, ask for help. Ask somebody to help you get the decorations out of the attic, mother. Ask for somebody to bring some dishes, some food to add to what you're already doing. Ask somebody to do some cleaning for you or other things. You don't have to do it all yourself. And by all means, take care of you. It's real important that while you're preparing for the holidays, to not get so caught up that you're staying up too late, that you're just eating snacks, eating those wonderful sweets that come with the holidays. You're eating pie instead of some protein for breakfast. Take time on the nicer days to maybe go for a short walk, do a little exercise, take time to sit and read a meditation or something. Just take time to do something that you find fulfilling. It's a good time of year to have some hot tea, some hot cocoa, work a puzzle, but don't forget to do things that are important to you and that make you feel good and will keep you healthy through this time of cold and flu seasons and all of those things. Let me get just a sip of tea. And this one may hit home for some of you. Learn to say no. Can you all repeat after me? No. Just no. It's okay. Saying no isn't selfish. Isn't always selfish. Saying no is a form of self-care. I've taught the Cloud and Townsend Boundary series more times than I can count and refer other people to it. When you say no to a new commitment, you're actually honoring your existing obligations. And ensuring that you'll be able to devote quality time to them. The more we take on, the more scattered we are, the more we don't do justice to anything. And that's frustrating and can make us feel not good about ourselves. Don't be afraid if things change for the holidays. Now, we've already gone through one holiday that probably was, contained more change than any of us thought was possible. I am hopeful. I hope you all are hopeful that this year will be a little less restrictive as people have gotten vaccines and boosters. That's my hope. But things still may look a little different. You may not be able to participate in some of the traditional events. Some things are still not open up fully. But it's important, if you can, to stay connected. So about the staying connected, if you feel comfortable, maybe call somebody and go to lunch if you're comfortable with that. Text somebody you haven't talked to in a while. Pick up the phone and call somebody who may be isolated, maybe somebody you haven't heard from, maybe they've moved. But connectivity is a wonderful thing, even if it's on Zoom. Before all of you got on here, I saw Yvette. We reconnected. We worked together years and years and years ago at Baptist Hospital. So connection is good for us. So any way you can find to do that, I tell my clients often that it is not good to just be in your own head all the time. Sometimes it's a scary place to be, and I don't want to be in other people's heads either. But and it's also isolating. We need other people. Other people are like a realistic mirror for us. We don't have the ability to look in the mirror and really see ourselves as others see us. We see ourselves through our own image, our own stuff, our own flaws. But other people can look at us and give us a whole different take on who we are and what kind of a person we are. So that the connectivity is so important. Maintain your traditions if at all possible. I think, I find comfort in traditions. Some people may not. Some people may find those boring. But if you have traditions and you value them, try your best to lean into those and repeat them. Some of the ways you can do that is reminisce. Even if maybe the tradition that you want to practice can't be done this year, maybe pull out photos from years before and look at pictures of Christmases past and talk about the memories and the pleasant images that were in those. I don't know if anybody still has home movies or home DVDs or slides, but those things can be pulled out and shown to younger generations so that they can see what family looked like and how it's changed or not. When you relive those traditions, you connect the past with the present and can actually strengthen bonds among family members. Again, another way to stay connected, sending those holiday cards. If you're tech savvy, you can send e-cards for free to people's email address. I know it's not the same. And I may be, again, kind of an odd duck, but I love getting the cards that have the letter enclosed that tell what the family has been doing all year. Now, sometimes lately we haven't been doing as many things, so the letters are shorter. But, I don't think those are boring at all. I think those are interesting to find out what people have been doing. And even if you are in a position of being retired and maybe you don't think that there's much going on, again, it's probably more than you think, and other people want to hear from you. Maybe they want to hear what your children and grandchildren are doing. So maybe it's not just what you've been doing, but your family as well. Another tip is to not let the calendar do all the dictating. Yes, December 25th is considered Christmas. The 24th is considered Christmas Eve. Kwanzaa comes right after that. Of course, we've got New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. Yes, those are dates on a calendar, but that's all they are really, are dates on the calendar. So if I don't get my tree up until this weekend and I want to leave it up till the end of January, I will. If I have lights outside on a evergreen bush or lighted trees on my porch and I want to leave those up all through winter, then it's okay to do that. If they bring me joy, then that's what I'm going to do. And hopefully the neighbors will appreciate it. You could postpone gatherings. You know, if it's too much, you can put it off. I know people who have, and again, I'm coming a little bit from a Christian perspective here, but Epiphany falls about in the first week of January. I don't have the date, but it's a celebration of when the wise men arrive. That's a great time. Everybody's sort of done Christmas. Some people have it put away, and January people are starting to look for something else to do. So it's a great time to have a gathering or to celebrate something. Well, let's talk a little bit about families. Families can sometimes be a challenge, can't they? You've got adults, adult children, in-laws, outlaws, grandchildren, great-grands, got yours, mine, and ours. But they all combine to make family in some way or another. So that takes sometimes some special consideration. I know we've learned in our family as my niece and nephew have become adults and added people to their lives. It's not as easy to schedule things. People just have many commitments that they're trying to do. So again, if you can be flexible, you don't insist on celebrating the holiday in a specific way or on a specific day. You might have to flex. Somebody might have to come the day before or the day after, or instead of having everybody there for Christmas Eve, you may have to do it Christmas morning. But I think the important part is, can everybody get together at some point? The time and the date shouldn't be the most important thing. Compromise and some flexibility are essential to a successful celebration. And so the best time to celebrate is when everybody can be together as much as possible. And still there are times when you may not be able to get everybody together. When communicating with family, ask questions, encourage people to express their feelings, listen patiently without interrupting. Don't always already have your mind made up about what you're going to say about a situation before somebody finishes what they need to say. Maintain open lines of communication and pay special attention to the children in your lives. I know you all have probably seen the latest information that's coming out about how anxious and stressed our children and young people are. And they are finding difficulty being heard. Their voices are being lost and they are becoming more isolated. So listen to the children. Listen to what they have to say about things. And also, this is interesting, and some of you may know this and some of you may not, but sometimes when families get together, we may resort or regress back into our old roles, our old patterns. The oldest, which I am, may end up being more bossy or want to be more in control at times. The youngest may want to get what they want when they want it. And the middle is distracting everybody else by trying to be the joker or the funny one. But we get into our roles, parents, siblings, and sometimes when we're back in with everybody, it's just like everybody falls into their patterns. It's not healthy, but you have to also be kind of aware and maybe gently point out that the behavior is something you've seen before, and can we maybe put that off and enjoy the day and try to get along. But then you can take it, and I'm not a fan of sweeping things under the rug. Don't hear that. But maybe you come back to it at a later time and you don't try to hash out family issues during a celebration. If you do see those things happening, also be aware of your own behavior, not just everybody else's, but we all have to watch our own behavior. And this is good advice for everything. Before you react, stop and take a breath before the next thing comes out of your mouth, and count to 10 if you have to. And then you can stop long enough to make a conscious choice about how best to move forward. And then always try to see things from other people's point of view. Everybody has a point of view. Everybody has an opinion. And I had a dear friend tell me one time that it's always important when you've got a situation to walk all the way around it, to make a circle and walk all the way around and try to figure out everybody's position. Well, I guess I'll talk a little bit about mental health, and then I'm going to open it up for some questions. I've got some information on grief in the holidays that we could talk about. See, I had a loose plan, but I'm also trying to be flexible. Again, the holidays can be stressful for a lot of people. And if you are already struggling or prone to have some anxiety and depression, sometimes those symptoms can really be exacerbated during the holidays. So to deal with some holiday anxiety, well, first of all, let me tell you what some of the symptoms of anxiety are, just in case you don't know. Anxiety really is when you can't turn off the worry and you want to control everything. You have this real need to control. And what I've been telling people lately is, we really aren't in control of much except our behavior. Our thoughts come, our feelings come, and we can't really control those. We can control what we do with thoughts. We can kind of temper the feelings, and we can control our behavior. But that's pretty much where it stops, folks. And I know that may not sound very optimistic, but I think there's some truth in it. And of course, we've all learned through COVID and other things that there are just things that are just beyond our control, no matter what. But when somebody has anxiety, the more they feel like they don't have control, the more anxious, worried, panicked, panic attacks, or people feel like they can't breathe. They're just so nervous and jittery and may think they're having a heart attack. That's usually my description when people aren't sure if they've had a heart attack. I said, if you've ever had a time when you think you are dying, but you're not, then you probably had a panic attack. Irritability. People get irritable when they're anxious because they tend to lash out because they don't know what else to do with all of the worry and the anxiety. And the best technique that I've come across for anxiety is to help people stay in the moment. Because usually what makes us anxious are thoughts, regrets of the past, replaying the DVD of that event over and over and wanting the end to be different. And then the other side, and some people have both, but the other side is people worrying about the future. People trying to anticipate, trying to go through what are all the possible scenarios? What if this? What if I do this? What if I don't do that? And just on and on and on until people lose total sight of what's absolutely right in front of them. And we'll just miss the moment. So I talk a lot about being in the moment. There's lots of techniques, and I'm not going to try to hit all of them today, but to practice being in the moment is to have something to focus on. We call it grounding, having something to listen to, having something to look at, to listen to music, to watch a movie, but just be present. Use the environment that you're in right in front of you to just be present in the moment. Sometimes during the winter months, people experience more depressed mood, and we call that seasonal affective disorder. Ironically, that spells sad, or maybe not ironically, by design more than likely. But it really is a clinical condition that's brought on for some people by decreased exposure to sunlight. Sunlight helps us produce vitamin D, which gives us energy, and it just to sit in darkness will eventually make us sad. We need light, just like the plants. We need light to thrive. So if in these dark days that are it's getting dark at what, 5 o'clock now, and it'll probably be a little earlier before we see a time change. I have timers at my house for lights to come on, so I have to find the switches and do all that kind of stuff, and I keep moving my timer up. So I have the lights come on in the house like at 5 o'clock and set to go off at, closer to bedtime. But I don't want to sit in darkness with just the TV on. I don't think it's healthy. So turn on some lights. Turn on a light that's right next to you. There's actually light therapy where it's a prescription to sit near a bright light for about 20 minutes, occasionally looking at it, not staring at it, but just occasionally glancing over at it, and letting that light sort of take root and help you with your mood. The seasonal affective disorder is something that should be transient, and as the days get longer, it should get better. But if it doesn't, and you feel a constant state of sadness, or in a constant state of sadness or irritability, that you lose interest in things that you used to enjoy, that you feel fatigued and just have no energy that can't be related to a physical condition. If you have feelings of inappropriate guilt, I'm a big believer that if you do something wrong, you're probably going to feel a little guilty about that. And sometimes that's appropriate. You need to apologize and all those things. But a lot of people get caught in this cycle of hopelessness, worthlessness, and then start ruminating on things that maybe they've done in the past and start to take on guilt for situations that really aren't theirs to take on. If you have a real change in your appetite or weight, if you're packing on a lot of pounds, or you're not eating and you're not interested in eating, and the weight's dropping off. Change in your sleep habits. If you're going to bed at 5 o'clock, the minute it gets dark, and you're sleeping all the way until it gets light at what, 7:30? Or if you're staying up until 1, 2 o'clock, watching TV, playing games on your phone, and then maybe going to sleep, and you sleep for 4 or 5 hours and then you're up for the day. That's another change and something to be concerned about. If you are having more trouble concentrating or making decisions. And then, of course, if you are having any thoughts of life's not worth living, or thinking about your own death in some way, then please get help and talk to somebody. Reach out to a friend, a priest, clergy person. Your primary care would be your first person these days to reach out to, unless you have a therapist or a psychiatrist. But the primary care doctors right now are kind of our gatekeepers and our referral sources. So reach out to them and say, hey, this is not good. I'm not doing well. And let them help you. Let them help you. So let me stop there for a minute and see what questions, comments, tidbits. One of my philosophies is there's always more knowledge in a gathering like this. I used to say in a room, now it's a Zoom room, but there's always more knowledge. You all have wisdom. And, I refer to my older clients as wisdom keepers. So you all have wisdom. I don't have all the wisdom. So if there's some things that you do that help you get through the holidays, things that you found helpful, share those with us and ask some questions if you have them.
I think one of the things that Jeannie and I have done through the years is, well, here more recently, is things that were no longer useful to us or hard. Diana remembers, because she's been here, we had all this Christmas Village stuff, the Christmas in the City, and took out all the books out of the bookcases and filled them up, and it looked wonderful. Now our grandgirls have those. They enjoy putting them together with us. Things from when we had the tent party and the cookies and carols. Most of that stuff is at Brian and Kelly's house now.
Oh, wow.
But, it was just, we'd seen it, done it. And, Jeannie is better than I about editing. That, so many of the things you've talked about, Dan, which is great, but it's about editing your life, and sometimes it's editing people out of your life. People that are the Debbie Downers that, oh, Christmas is bad, this is bad, this is bad. Just skip them. Just skip. Pray for them, put them on your prayer list, wish them happy holidays, but don't try to fix them. You're not going to make everybody happy. And I think that as I've gotten older and experienced more of life, so to say, that you're not going to fix everybody. You're not going to make everybody happy. They're not going to be, just do what you feel is right and helpful. And one of the things that I have found helpful in my life is that phrase, before you say something that might be critical of someone else or their thought, is this helpful? And if it's not helpful, don't say it. Just let it ride. Because, people take words very seriously oftentimes, and we say things that we think are important, but really they're not helpful. So that's my little thought on this.
Thanks, Bill. I appreciate that, especially the part about editing and making things simpler.
Yes.
I think we get caught up in thinking we have to do it the same way we've always done it, even if it was for 40 years. And
Yeah.
and sometimes I remember, and I'll tell on myself, that's okay. I remember when mother moved the stockings that we had as children. They used to hang on the mantle, and then they were kind of updated to sort of newer stockings. And I was like, where are the old ones? What happened to the other ones? Well, they were still around, but they were getting more ratty and didn't look as good. So, but I'm learning that we have to change. We have to let go of some things. I'm more of a keeper, holder on to than I need to be. I admit that. But we need to start editing, Bill. And I think, and true to that definition, you edit out the stuff that's junk or duplication, and you keep what's really important.
Sad to say, I would say that is sometimes true with our friends.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that it's time to move on. You and I'll have a private conversation about that someday.
Sounds like maybe we need to.
Yeah, it's somebody you know. But yeah, but everything is so politicized nowadays, and everything is seen through a lens of, well, is this a Democrat thing, a Republican thing, a liberal or conservative? I walk down the middle of the road. Some's good, some's bad. But and this one person I'm thinking of, everything is politicized, and not good to be. It's not good for anybody's mental health to listen to that all the time, I don't think. Right, Angela?
I wholeheartedly agree with that. There's too much of a good thing. I think too much of anything's probably
Exactly.
never really great.
Exactly. Yeah.
Except money. No, I'm just kidding.
Except
Yes.
Money.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
You've tried with and without, and it's
Yeah.
a way.
I do think, Diana, that you make some very good points about the, almost setting boundaries and saying no. It used to be that my husband and I would go home to our families, and they live 30 minutes apart, and we'd ping pong all through the holidays, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then it was like, we're done. We just can't do it anymore. And it upset all of them, but we're saner people for doing that, because it was like we'd get done with the holidays and just be completely exhausted and didn't really enjoy the holidays. And so now we are enjoying the holidays by just FaceTiming in with our family and opening gifts and all of that, but not having to do all of the other and feel like obligated to do that, I guess.
I know my family, we're on my dad's side, we're very large, and it's everyone. And we were exchanging gifts with every single person. And finally, when my brother and I got to college, and then as adults, where I finally was kind of like, I don't want to come. Like, please don't give me gifts, and I won't give you any gifts, and we'll be fine. And it eventually changed to you pick a name, which has made it much more manageable. But I think people were continuing with the tradition, even though multiple people couldn't sustain it. And finally, it just took someone kind of being like, can we pause and look at this? Are we actually happy with it? And that helps a lot.
And that's the editing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Anybody else have anything that works for them, or any questions?
Well, I think sometimes, as you mentioned, people get so caught up in the traditions, and we have a large group of seniors that we interact with, and one of the things that we try to remind them during the holiday season is that traditions can change. It doesn't always have to look the same, and it's never too late to create new traditions moving forward. And so we often have other seniors who come and talk about, here's what I started doing at this point in my life, and this is why it's working. And those suggestions tend to be very helpful. So thank you for covering this topic today, because I do think it's very timely and appropriate.
You're welcome. Yes, and it can be different. It doesn't have to be, just because you do something different and you add a new tradition, it can be fun. One of the things we've done for the last couple of years, which we didn't do before, is we will load up the car with my mom and my uncle and my husband and myself, and we'll turn on the Christmas music and we'll make this big loop that goes around through Powell Halls, Gibbs, where we live, and come back down Tazewell Pike and around, and just see the Christmas lights. It's just fun. Doesn't take a lot of time, but it's something we've done, I think, the last couple of years, and I want to do it again. So, I don't know how many years it takes for something to be a tradition. I think maybe if you do it once and repeat it, then it can be a tradition, right? But it's kind of new and it's fun and a little different. And so I think we need to start and do new things.
I did have one question. You mentioned anxiety and how it kind of presents itself, but does anxiety tend to present itself differently as we age? Does it look different as a child or a young person versus maybe when we're older? And then what are maybe some symptoms or physical symptoms of anxiety for older adults, if it does present itself a little differently?
I think it does present itself a little differently, and maybe it's just the energy level. But I think, younger people tend to get more restless and can't sit still, and they're fidgety, and their behavior, they tend to get into things to just be more active physically. And then I think it does change as we get older. We tend to get more in our heads because we have more history, we have more things to worry about, we have more past. And so there's a tendency to just get in your head more and worry and worry and worry. And then sometimes you feel like you have more to worry about. You have, housing, finances. It doesn't matter how old, apparently, that your children are, people still worry about them, their adult children and their children, and how are they going to fare going forward in this world. So there's just, I do think it changes a little bit. To answer your question about physical symptoms, I talked about kind of the chest pressure, feeling like you can't get a breath. I spend a lot of time teaching people how to breathe. Again, Bill, you're going to understand this because Bill sings, and so I almost give voice lessons in my sessions sometimes, because people have to learn to breathe from their diaphragm. We chest breathe all the time from up here. I realize you can't see up here. We rarely breathe deeply from our diaphragm. And the only time we sometimes do is, unfortunately, when you end up in the hospital and you have one of those inspiration devices that they give you to keep you from getting pneumonia, and then you have to really breathe deep to make that sucker work. But otherwise, on a day-to-day basis, we rarely take a deep breath from our diaphragm so that we get air all the way down to the bottom of our lungs. So if I can just teach people to slow their breathing down and to breathe deep, that helps with this feeling of, I can't breathe. In through your nose, slowly to the count of 4, hold for 7, out for 8, or whatever pattern works for you that you don't feel. I don't want anybody to feel short of breath. And slow, slow, slow is always the key. You don't want anybody who's already having anxiety to hyperventilate. So slow, deep breaths. Other physical symptoms, you break out sweat, sweaty palms, It's too hot. I'm choking. Everything feels too tight. Feeling like they're going to pass out. And the one that I've seen more often lately that I've never really connected with anxiety is I'm seeing more and more people be dizzy. Just feeling dizzy and things are ruled out, no inner ear, no vertigo, no whatever, but they just feel dizzy, like they just can't get their bearings. So I think that has become a symptom of anxiety. And when we start to ask about everything else, then you find out, well, yeah, I'm real anxious. I had a client this morning came in and she was dizzy, but she's very, very anxious. Kind of just in some physical presentation as far as behavior is concerned. And I think this cuts across the age spectrum is sometimes when we are anxious and we feel like we can't control anything else, we try to start organizing and sorting and trying to make things line up. It's our attempt at control. And momentarily, it does sort of bring down our anxiety. It doesn't do anything about it permanently. But in the moment, to make sure that all your socks are matched, to make sure that everything is folded the same way, the towels are all in the linen closet and they're all folded exactly the same way and they're sorted by color, all of those kind of behaviors. And I see more of those, I think. Well, no, those are all those things, the sorting and trying to make sense of things, I think cuts across the spectrum. Any other common symptoms that other people are aware of about anxiety?
I know you hit most of the symptoms for me.
Okay.
Yeah, that's about right.
That sounds about right. Okay. Well, it looks like we're getting, I can't believe I talked this whole time. I thought I would run out of things to say. Imagine that. I really didn't even touch on, and I've just had the grief part out there, which I think is important, especially during the holidays. I think we miss those people who are not part of our lives. But as always, there's information online about grieving. Some of the local churches have special services for people who are grieving at this during the holidays. There are grief support groups. Grief Share often does a holiday session that even if you haven't been a part of their regular meetings, you can attend a holiday session. So, if you're grieving and need resources on that, or the other thing I told Angela is she can share my email address with you. So if you have questions or want some additional information, or you or somebody would like to make an appointment, and counseling these days can be anything you want it to be. I still get some folks who have never been in counseling, never been in therapy, which tends to amaze me sometimes because I thought everybody had been at one point or another. But it's just trying to figure out what's going on, what's bothering you, and see if we can work together and make it easier.
Well, Diana, thank you, buddy. That was great. And I think that gives us all things to think about. And as we look forward to the holidays, to make them enjoyable for ourselves and others that are around us. Anything else, Angela, Dottie, from the office? Nope. Well, everybody have a wonderful holiday season. Go easy, keep looking up, and thank you for being with us.
But I hope you're welcome. I hope you thrive and not just survive.
Exactly. We want to thrive, not survive. That's exactly. Right. Thank you, buddies. Good to see everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, Diana.
Bye.